Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Best Notes webinar today. We're going to get started. It is now 11 o'clock Mountain Time. I'm very happy that all of you could join us today. We might have other people showing up. That's all well and good. We want everyone to be able to use Best Notes to their fullest capacity. Best Notes is very customizable to your individual needs, and many specialized components can be used. This webinar, however, is focused on the basic everyday usage of Best Notes. We want to ensure that you know what basic tools are at your disposal and how to use them to maximize efficiency day by day. This webinar will be especially useful for those relatively new to Best Notes, but for those of you who've been using Best Notes for a while, you may learn a trick or two. We hope that this recording can be, among other things, a useful onboarding tool and resource for your facilities in the future. When you first log into Best Notes, the first thing you will see is this calendar page. The calendar page itself is broken into three separate sections. We have the calendar section over here on the right. We have the review or log section here on the left. And we also have the tasks up here on the top left. We start with the Best Notes calendar, both in our general trainings as well as the first screen you see when you open, is because through the Best Notes calendar, we can automate a great many Best Notes components. If we're using the Best Notes calendar, we can create scheduling, notation, and billing and have that all finished in one fell swoop, as opposed to having to work on each of those components of our business separately. You certainly do not need to be using the Best Notes calendar, but there are a lot of features therein that we're going to cover. To create an appointment, all I need to do is click on an empty spot somewhere in the calendar. The first thing I'll want to do is select a calendar type. In this webinar database, we only have two different types of calendar appointment. However, you can have as many as you need. Again, very customizable. You can have dozens and dozens of calendar appointments as necessary. In this case, we're going to create an individual session. Each calendar appointment has the potential to have a default template associated with it. It could be a template or an assessment. It can also have a default billing code associated with it. We'll be looking at the templates and notes later. We will not be discussing billing in this training, but that is a functionality that Best Notes has. The reason we want to select the type first is because of the default parameters that can be assigned to this appointment. If I need to extend the time of the appointment, and yet if I change the type afterwards, it will change the default end time based on the default duration set in your calendar settings. So it's a good idea to set the type first. The subject is an optional field. If the subject is left blank, then whoever the first contact is in our contacts list will show up as the subject name instead. As you just saw, we can add contacts simply by typing in their name here in the contact search field. As soon as we have 3 letters or more, it will bring up search results that we can add. We also have the ability to add users. Users are users of Best Notes. They're going to be your coworkers and other people that can log into your database. By default, when I create an appointment on my calendar, I'm logged in right now as Joe Regular. It will default me as the regular provider or as the provider for this appointment. If I have permissions to do so, I can certainly change that. And if I don't want to change the provider, but I do want to add other people to this meeting, or in other words, add this meeting to other people's calendars, I can add them through the users section here. The recurrence tab is basically what it says it is. It's a way to have appointments and appointment types occur in a regularly scheduled form. We can choose several different methods of repeating, weekly, daily, monthly, as you would like. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. So in order for the recurrence to populate, we will need to end after a certain amount of occurrences in the series or on a specific date. One nice thing about the BestNotes calendar is it will immediately tell you what appointments are coming up, and we can decide right now to not hold one. I don't need to go and reschedule later. If there are any conflicting appointments, you will have the option of choosing which appointment you will attend, or you will also have the option on the right side here to overlap the appointments. Perhaps one of the appointments is a reminder that it's National Secretary's Day. That is fantastic. We can still see our clients. We will overlap. The notes section here is not for your clinical notes. We will be looking into clinical notes later in this webinar. This is specific for your training, or sorry, specific for your appointment, which can be a training or it can be all sorts of other things, in this case, an individual session. This is not where we're going to put PHI. This is not where we're going to be putting in their clinical notes. This is, however, a great place to put in contact information, or meeting details. We also have the ability to adjust the ledger, but we are not going to be going through that in this training. If you have any questions about things I mentioned that we are not going to cover in this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be posting our phone number a little bit later. Once an appointment is saved, it will show up on the calendar. We can open it up again, and we notice that we have several buttons over here on the right that are now clickable. We also notice that we have several symbols next to our contact list over here. A good rule of thumb in BestNotes is if there is not an explicit label on it already, if you hover your mouse over it, it will give you a tooltip telling you what that icon is for. In this case, we have the star for confirming a contact, we have cancel appointment, and we have no show. We might notice that we have those same options over here on the right. The difference is if I use these buttons on the right, I am applying this status to everyone in the appointment. So if everyone is confirmed, I can click that. However, if only one person is confirmed, I would use these buttons over by the client's chart, or their names. Because I am logged in as myself, looking at my calendar, when I check in the appointment, it will also begin the appointment. If, however, I'm looking at someone else's calendar, maybe I'm working at the front desk or something, and I'm looking at a provider's calendar, if I hit check in, it will not begin the appointment. Instead, it will send a notification to SlimMic administrator in this case that their clients are ready. The provider would come get the clients, and then they would hit the begin appointment button on their BestNotes. But since I'm logged in as Joe Regular, looking at Joe Regular's calendar, checking in will also begin the appointment. We notice as soon as I check in, the note that was associated with this appointment type automatically populates. We'll go more into notation later, but again, if we use the calendar, we can have the notes show up automatically. We can start working on it then and there as we're with the client, whatever fits your workflow. We notice that we have a little star or a little play button icon on the calendar appointment, indicating that it is currently active and running. When we are done with the appointment, we will want to check out. That will help our report, so you can check attendance and compliance. It also, if you're using our billing, you need to check out before the ledger code will apply to the client's charts. We also have the ability to view other people's calendars. Clicking on this calendar with the plus button up in the top right, we can view other people or other groups of users in BestNotes as long as we have permissions to do so. We have two different views. We have column view, which stacks everyone's calendar right next to each other. We also have overlay view, which stacks them all on top of each other. Notice that my calendar appointments for my calendar are slightly more opaque than the more transparent calendar appointment for SlimMic administrator. To go back to our default view, we can either unclick everything we clicked or more easily hit Reset Calendar View. We have the ability to change time zones. For most of us, that's not going to be particularly important, but for some of our larger companies or those that service people from large areas, it can be very helpful to schedule that way. If you are not currently on your default time zone as specified by your user settings that your system administrator set up, it will give us this red hue to indicate that we are not scheduling for our native time zone. We have a couple different date pickers or way to navigate the calendar. We of course have these arrows over here. We have a calendar in the bottom left that we can use. We also have a date picker hidden under the date here on BestNotes itself. We can change our calendar view by clicking these items over here, whether work week, full week, or month view. And we also have this ellipses over here with a couple different options available. We can print our current calendar agenda view. In essence, if I'm looking at a day schedule for 2 people, that is what we'll print, the daily schedule for 2 people. If I'm just looking at my calendar on the week view, it will print my schedule for the week. By default, you see canceled and rescheduled appointments. However, if you do not need to view canceled and rescheduled appointments on your calendar, then we can uncheck that box. Do keep in mind that despite having a local installation on your computer, BestNotes happens in the cloud. Simply by using BestNotes and going through daily duties, it will be refreshing constantly, and it's not usually gonna cause any type of situation. But if you want to be absolutely certain that what you're seeing is up to date, if you haven't been navigating around different pages much, we do have this refresh button here, which will sync with our server and show any changes that may have been made. The other sections we have on our calendar page are the log or review section and tasks. The log or review section is composed of 3 different components. We have the Q log, the general log, and the For Review tab. The For Review tab is where you will go to sign items that you did not generate yourself. Appointments that you create yourself, and the notes that are applied to it, or if you generate the notes without the appointments, you will sign as you finish the note. But for anything else that you need to sign, maybe someone was seeing your client while you were on vacation, or maybe it's just some HR documents that your supervisor needs you to sign, will show up here in your For Review tab. We are already logged in with a unique identifier, our username and password. So to sign the entry, all I need to do is choose to sign the entry and verify it. Because we're already logged in with a unique identifier, it applies my legally binding digital signature to the note upon verifying my signature. The general log is a grand history of everything that's ever happened in your database that you have permissions to view. It can be helpful for gathering lots of data, but there of course is a lot of data there to sift through. We have some filtering options. We can filter by note status. We can look for certain kinds of notes. Squirreled away in this little double arrow icon here, we also have the ability to search by user and or by date to narrow down what we're looking for. Keep in mind that there are 50 items per page, so you may need to scroll through. Because the general log can be rather cumbersome at times, the Q log stands for quick log, and in theory, it is showing you that which is particularly pertinent to you right here, right now. By default, any calendar scheduled appointments will send you a reminder in the Q log that it has been calendared for you, but it can also be used as a HIPAA-compliant internal messaging system. It is encrypted end-to-end and only accessible by other users of your BestNotes database. It functions very similar to an email or messaging service. But not only can we send a message one to another in an encrypted HIPAA-compliant manner, we can also log entries to a client's chart. so that communications can also be logged to appropriate contacts. It can save us time from having to reinvent the wheel in essence. We also have the tasks tab. The tasks is kind of a love it or hate it situation I found. For some people, they live and breathe by it. It can really help you keep track of what you need to do. We can create tasks. We can assign due dates. If we have the proper permissions for it, we can also assign tasks to other people. This can be a useful feature for supervisors to keep employees on task, or at least to review how they're doing with their assigned tasks. Please note that what we see here on the calendar page, however, is only showing the tasks that show up in the next 7 days. To find the rest of my tasks, I would go to the Tasks tab. Because this is due more than 7 days out, it wasn't showing up on my calendar list. However, if we change it to something more recent, we will notice it right here. If you have a huge report you need to do for the Joint Commission and you wait for it to show up on your calendar page, you are probably going to have a bad week. If you're in the camp that doesn't want to use the tasks, it's just something else cluttering up your screen, we can at least get rid of the clutter by minimizing it there. Let's go to a client's chart. Under the Contacts tab, we have the list of every contact in your database, at least the ones you have permission to see. BestNotes permissions can be very granularly applied, so that we can be very specific in what people can or cannot see. Again, HIPAA requires least required access to do your job. This list is usually going to be much, much larger than what I have here. As such, we have filtering options. We can look by name. We can filter by first or last name. I can look by tags or contact types. However, usually instead of going to the master list, we will just want to use our little search bar up here on the top left. Again, as soon as we type in 3 letters or more, it will start searching. You may notice that we have on the master contact list some white and yellow highlights. You might also notice that on our search bar, we have some red and black dots. Those indicate the exact same thing. A red dot or a yellow highlight indicates that this is a client or a student, or whatever terminology you would prefer. Indicates you have med clinical data for them, that you have some PHI or will have PHI. Could be a past, a present, or a future client, but that's what the yellow highlight or red dot signifies. The white highlight or black dots would be any other type of contact, whether it's an individual, a business, a school, a program. It could be us here at BestNotes. It could be a parole officer. It could be your janitor. Any contact that is not a client will be a black dot or a white highlight. We, in essence, found that white and yellow dots were invisible, and of course, black and red highlights were impossible, hence the color schemes, but they do the same thing. Speaking of doing the same thing, by clicking on a name, whether through the search results or from the master contact list, it will open up the client's chart. If you are not finding a client that you are certain should be there in your search results, we can click on this little blue arrow here and change what we are searching for. So if, for example, you didn't have the last name selected, then typing in DOE would not help me, but I could find him via John. The client's chart is separated again into 3 sections. We have the demographics area up on top. We have the activity log over here on the right, and we have the miscellaneous tabs over here on the left. The demographics section can be edited by clicking on their name in the top left corner. It will pull up the edit contact details screen. Depending on the type of contact, it will have different questions. As John Doe here is a client, it will have the most data I can put in. If he was some other type of contact, it would require less information. I say require, however, in order to save a contact, all you really need to have is the first name, the last name, and an access tag. All other information can be entered later, if at all. A couple things to be aware of here. If your company is not using nor care to use the lives with, group, mail label, school, or grade options, we can repurpose those fields into something more specialized to your needs. Feel free to contact us if you need that to happen. We are also able for you to add new referral types. You can add more religion options if necessary. There are a lot of things we can add for you. A couple things that we can't change directly include race and ethnicity. Those are set to the United States Census standards. If you require more variability in that, please contact us and we can help you with different options we can build into your notes for you. We notice on the demographics area that I have the ability to add people to lists. The My List corresponds to the My button over here. If there's someone I want to go to quickly, I don't want to have to keep typing in their name, I can add it to the My List. In conjunction with that, we can also add people to quick lists. Quick lists can be labeled. We have 1 through 7. Those correspond with the buttons 1 through 7 over here. Note that quick lists are universal, whereas only Joe Regular Sign In will have his My List because that's specific to him. Everyone that clicks on Quick List 1 will have the same clients there, assuming they have permission to view that client in particular anyway. But it can be a good way of categorizing and quickly accessing records if used properly. The miscellaneous tabs here on the left will, by default in your database, start with the Contacts tab. Your system administrator can change that to start with one of these other tabs by default, but normally it is going to be the Contacts tab. The Contacts tab is where we keep information for all sorts of related contacts. It is where we will keep track of who is the parental guardian or spouse or parole officer. We can put in people's referrers or referrals in here, which can feed into many of our reports. In order to add a contact, all we'll need to do is use this search bar over here. We can type in their name. If they're already in the BestNotes system, I would just select them from the drop-down, or I could create a new contact record and have it relate to them that way. When creating or editing a relationship, we first off have this fairly comprehensive drop-down, but do keep in mind it is also a text box, and we can be as specific as we need to. BestNotes has the ability to pull a lot of information into a lot of different notes. That's kind of our primary purpose, is notation, and we want to make that as easy as possible for you. If, for example, you want to pull in either into a note or into a report emergency contact numbers and information, we can certainly do that, but we will need to be told who the emergency contact is or who the parent guardian is or so on and so forth. We can edit a contact relationship by clicking on the button with the 2 little people by each other under the Contacts tab. The Episodes tab contains 3 components. It contains episodes, it contains programs or levels of care, and it also is a place where you'll put in payers. We're not going to cover these in depth right now, but the reason why you might want to use episodes is, in essence, to create a separate treatment episode and a separate contact record for the same person. In essence, if someone leaves, maybe they finished their program and then relapse later, maybe they moved away and then moved back. But if someone leaves and they come back and suddenly their chart, which has been dormant for years, suddenly has new notes attached to it, for many auditors and accrediting bodies, that can indicate a lack of continuity of care. We recommend instead creating a new episode, which will create a linked contact, John Doe case 2 in essence, that I can pull information from, but still keep it as a discrete separate record, which will help reporting and auditing purposes. If you have any need to be using that functionality, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to walk you through that. But we're not going to spend time on that right now. We can also track, if we have permissions for it, levels of care or programs that can feed into different reports as well. It is certainly not required. As mentioned before, BestNotes can pull in all sorts of data from all sorts of places into your notes and into your reports. It's very robust. But if there's an item that BestNotes is not capturing directly that you want to be able to either pull into a note or treatment plan and or report upon, we can create data forms and attach them to a client's chart. Every point of data in a data form is a discrete point of data, which means it can be yanked in to any type of document you want, as well as we can run reports on it. If we want to find out everyone who has red hair and likes pizza, as long as we have those data points put in a data form or data forms, that can be reported on. The tasks tab here on the client's chart is very similar to the tasks tab we found on the calendar page. The only difference is this also pertains to a specific client. So instead of just do the thing by the time, we would want to do the thing by the time for John Doe in this case. Again, some people love it, other people ignore it forever. That's up to you and your workflows. BestNotes can make all sorts of notes. We can do all sorts of customized things for you. However, sometimes it is simply easier to upload an existing document. In order to upload a file, we merely need to select this Upload File button here. Upon doing so, we may notice that the file size maximum has been increased to 50 megabytes. That should be large enough for pretty much anything you may need to upload. Simply choose a file. It will open up a File Explorer option, select the file you need, and add it to the folder. BestNotes is fairly file type agnostic, but there are a couple best practices. Either open file types or file types that have very little restrictions. Most of them can open directly in to BestNotes. For example, if I click on this PDF, BestNotes will open up the PDF in its own window. That will work for PDFs. It will work for most types of pictures, as well as several other types of files. However, if it's a more proprietary or locked down file type, instead of opening it up in BestNotes, you will be asked to download it to your computer in order to view it in the appropriate program there. So best practice is to usually do PDFs if you can help it. That way you don't need to worry about PHI on your computer and purging it therein. The client's activity log functions very similar to the general log that we saw earlier. It even has the same filtration options to find what we're looking for. Many items can be viewed directly from the activity log, including the things we just saw in the Files tab. Everything that has ever happened for this client that you have permission to view will be found in the activity log. We can create new notes from the activity log as well. Again, the recommended workflow is that you create notes from the calendar appointments. However, if you are using another calendaring solution or don't need to use that for some reason, then we can certainly create a new note from the client's chart directly. When we first hit new note, we'll have a kind of a blank sticky note type situation. Usually we will want to be going to a template note of some sort. This progress note should look familiar. It's what we opened up automatically from our calendar appointment. And while BestNotes can have a great variety of notes and assessments built to your needs, they are built from the same general components. In essence, there's the template itself, or the skeleton of the note. All progress notes will look like this. It'll say progress note on the top and plan, assessment, and all this on the bottom. We also have the variables or the special fields. We want to make note-taking as painless and as automatic as reasonably possible. So we know this client is John Doe. We know what day it is, and we know from his demographic screen that is therapist is Slimmic administrator. John Doe here does not have an admission date in his demographics currently, so that is not pulling in, but it would. The last component of our notes, our template notes, are our auto notes. Auto notes can be very simple. They can be very complex. The intent of them is to, again, write as much of your note for you as we reasonably can. We really want you to be able to get your notation done as quickly as possible. You know, the paperwork needs to be done, but the client really is what it's all about. So we want to help you spend more time with them. In this case, this auto note is pulling an objective from the client's treatment plan. I can choose what I need, and it will automatically insert itself to the appropriate spot in the note. They can be very simple like that. They can be more complex, like a mental status exam. And simply by making a couple clicks, I have written a big portion of this note. Again, we can make auto notes as simple as complex as you need. If you are interested in learning how to build your own documentation and auto notes, you can certainly view our previously done documentation webinar on our YouTube channel, or certainly reach out to us and we're happy to help you. We also have a couple other tools to help write your notes a little easier. We have the history tab here. We should be a little wary of it. With great power comes great responsibility, and this page has great power. But if in essence, there really has not been a substantial change since the last time I've seen John Doe, I can go in here to a previous note in the history tab and simply select something, and it will populate into the appropriate section in the note. I can leave it that way, or I can add to it as needed, but I can yank that information forward. I also have the ability, if literally nothing has changed, to clone the entire note. Do keep in mind, however, if we do that, we will want to make sure that everything is accurate and that we change the date of the session if that was previously there, because we notice that it completely clones the note. We also have a tab to our data forms here. These are the exact same data forms we saw in our miscellaneous section. But if we're supposed to be pulling some information from a data form into a note and the information has not been entered, we don't want you to have to close out of the note to go to the data form to jump back over here. We also have a notepad where you can put notes pertaining to the note. It's not a very commonly used feature, but that's something you can do. Note that every time you create a note, we will automatically assume that you need to sign the note. That is most often the case. We see Joe Regular's name here under the signers. We can always add other signers, whether the client or their related contacts. We can also add other users of BestNotes, maybe a supervisor or a coworker or what have us. If someone doesn't need to sign, including yourself, we can just hit the little garbage can to remove the required signature. One habit we're going to want to get into is we're going to try to avoid using, at least in template notes and in group notes, the operating system close buttons, whether it's the Windows X over here or the Mac OS red dot on the left. We don't want to be using those optimally in these notes because that does not always communicate with our server. And again, everything we're doing here needs to go to our cloud servers. These notes here, these template notes, are pure text. They're not active data fields. So unless we hit the save button on occasion, it's not going to reach our servers. So it is a good practice to be in if you're making a long note to occasionally hit the save button. That way, if your computer catches on fire or you get abducted by aliens or whatever, when you come home, you'll be able to log into another computer or the same one and continue where you left off. Otherwise, the note can be lost if an internet connection dies or some other thing happens. We also have the save and close button. That is basically saying I'm not done with this note. I need to come back and do further polish or type in the last bit of stuff. But right now I need to be doing something else. We're going to close out of it, but we'll be able to come back in later and edit it. The close button here is just to close it out, of course, and not save any changes that have been made. Then we have the save and lock button, or if you need to sign it, the save, sign, and lock button. That is how we signify that this note is finished. That is what we will apply our signature to. It's what other people will sign if they're required to. And that's all she wrote. When we click Save, Sign, and Lock, it will give us a little warning. And again, just like the For Review tab, because we are logged in as Joe Regular, looking at Joe Regular's chart that John Doe's chart for that Joe Regular is writing a note for, we assume that Joe Regular knows what he's doing. So having been signed in, all he needs to do is hit OK, and his digital signature will be applied. However, Slim Mick Administrator, that is when it went to his For Review tab for him to sign, and that is the difference there. There will be lots of different kinds of notes that you can look at in your database. You might be privileged enough to be using our profile system. If any of you are interested in that and are not using that, that is a set of pre-built documentation specifically for accreditation bodies and state and local laws. It can be a very good way to optimize your workflow as well. If you have any questions about our addiction treatment or mental health profiles, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to talk with you about that. We also have on the client's chart the Med Clinical tab. In here, we can find assessments and treatment plans, assuming you have permissions to see them. Assessments differ from clinical notes in the sense that they are living documents. Simply by going through this assessment, items are updated and saved. So you don't need to worry so much about bad internet connection when it comes to these guys. They are living documents that are intended to be updatable at any point in time. As such, however, being a living document, they are also kind of vacuous. If we need to crystallize an instance of this assessment here or a treatment plan at a point in time, we need to publish a snapshot, which does what you would think it does. It takes a picture of the note. That is what can be signed, makes a copy of this and puts it on the client's activity log. If there is a new diagnosis or new objective I want to add to the treatment plan, that's perfectly fine. I can just come back in here, add a new one, and publish a new snapshot. But do keep in mind, these won't show up on a client's chart until a snapshot is made. Also, under the MedClinical tab, you may have the ability to view and add their medications. To keep track of that, this information can pull into assessments and notes as well. We can also take vital signs. You can fill in allergies. We also have the ability to turn on custom test results. We can add a lot of things there per your needs. One last thing I want to cover on the client's chart is how to get a client to sign a document. There are two ways to do that. One is via the web portal. We're not going to be talking about the web portal today, but clients can sign documents remotely as long as they have internet access. We are also able to have clients sign documents directly from BestNotes if they're in the office with you. For a note to be signed, again, it does need to be locked. And we will notice that it says John's signature required right here. We can add John's required signature. We could add his mom's required signature or his parole officer or any related contact, either besides John or in addition to him. For him to sign while in the office with you, he will need to have a 4-digit PIN. If you have permissions to help him set that up, it will be this icon up here on the top left, a little E with a pen by it. When I click that, it will lock my screen and pull up a little window for the PIN to be put in. Here's when you would theoretically turn your computer over to the client and say, hey, please put in a 4-digit PIN with which to sign documents. That is why it will lock you out of BestNotes. You don't necessarily want them to see what's on their chart. They would put in the PIN they desire. And then we would be able to let them sign things in BestNotes. I shouldn't have to say this, but because there has been problems in the world before, make sure the client puts in that PIN. Don't do it for them. Once the PIN is created, simply by clicking on the button by the note, they can sign it. Alternatively, we have that little E with a pen icon up here on the top left with a number by it. That's indicative of 4 notes that John needs to sign as we go through his chart. If I want him to sign them all at once, I can click this button up here, or I can just click the button by the one I need him to sign right now. Again, it locks BestNotes, so you can turn your screen over to the client, say, please review this. They can put in their signature, verify, and their digital signature will be applied to the document. Some other functions of BestNotes. We have the Documents tab over here. This is very similar to the Files tab on the client's page. The difference being this is for you. This is for you and your company. This is maybe where you'll find some compliance documents, maybe some policy things, maybe a form you need to print out if there's an accident. But this is not where we will put PHI. This is for your company, not for the clients. We also have a Group Note tab. Again, group notes can be done from the calendar. It does not need to be done from the tab here. But the magic of group notes is that we can make one note for multiple people and have it, upon being finished, split into several HIPAA compliant subsections. So in essence, everything up here will show up on everyone's chart when this note is saved. The information put in here will only show up on Gabby's page, and the information put in here will only show up on Timothy's page. That way we can have 5 people in a group and just have to write one note and not jump between 5 different pages, writing everyone's note and still have it be HIPAA compliant upon finishing. Again, we want to be careful about using the operating system close button. We want to be in the habit of using the BestNotes one when it comes to template notes and group notes. We have a lot of reports in BestNotes. We're not going to cover very many of these here, but the very robust reporting capabilities of BestNotes is one of our top selling points. So if you're not using the report builder or any of our pre-built reports, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to schedule a training with you so we can get the most out of your data. One report I do want to look at right now is the BestNotes utilization report. We're talking today about kind of the basic underpinning BestNotes functionalities, but as I said earlier, there's a lot of specialization that we can do for you. If you're wondering whether or not your company is using all of the features of BestNotes, and you may or may not need to, but you can come to this BestNotes utilization report and see what features, if any, you have used in the month of the report. If you have any questions about using BestNotes to its fullest and going through this utilization report with a BestNotes representative, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you with that. We also have the settings tab here on the bottom. There can be all sorts of potential items that you can see in your settings tab depending on your permissions, but everyone will have this My Account tab, and there are a couple things we should be aware of here. By default, calendar appointments are being sent to your queue log. As we saw earlier, if you also want reminders sent to your email, that can be turned on here. We also have the ability to add 2 calendars over here on the bottom left for date navigation, if that is helpful for you. We also have the queue log email address. This is not a commonly used feature, but it can be very helpful. In essence, anything that is sent to this email address will go to Joe Regular's queue log, and from there it can be logged to a client's chart if necessary. do be aware that after it hits our database, it is completely HIPAA compliant, secured end to end, all well and good. However, if you have a parent emailing you something from an unencrypted McDonald's connection, we can't guarantee it until it hits our servers. We also have the ability to sync your BestNotes calendar with your phone or iPad or computer calendar. There are a couple caveats to be aware of. First off is we can only sync one way. For security reasons, we cannot sync your Google Calendar with BestNotes, but we can sync your BestNotes calendar with your Google Calendar. It can take anywhere between 5 minutes and a couple hours for the changes in BestNotes to change on your phone. That depends on when the server sync times are set and how they line up one with another, the BestNotes server and your email server. Usually doesn't take too long, but there can be a bit of a delay. Our primary servers are listed in Central Time. Another thing that your phone will usually try to do is it will say, if you're not in Central Time, hey, looks like this is for a couple hours off in a different time zone. Your phone will automatically often change the hours to fit your time zone without realizing that BestNotes has already done so. So you will need to go into your settings and turn that off most likely. We also have a mobile app for both Android and iOS devices. The mobile app is more of a supplement to the desktop application than a replacement. However, it is a good way to check on notes, to view your calendar that's always up to date, perhaps acquire signatures and take pictures as needed. That can all be done through the mobile app. Passwords by default will change every 90 days, or they'll require a change every 90 days. Your system administrator can expand or contract that time frame to their discretion. However, by default, it will time out at 90 days. If you log into BestNotes on the 89th or 90th day, it will tell you to reset your password then and there. You can also reset your password at any time. Maybe you think that expiration date's coming up soon. Maybe there's a fear of password being compromised. Whatever, you can change your password here from my account. I cannot help you change your password. If you call me, I will be very sympathetic, but I can't help you change your password. The attempts of social engineering hacks are on the rise. And if I don't have enough information on you to prove your identity, I will be unable to help you. I can only set the passwords for system administrators. However, your system administrator for your facility will be able to reset your passwords for you. The last thing I want to show you is our little red eye up here in the top. That will take you to our BestNotes help page. We have a fantastic support team here, very happy and eager to help you. Our phone is open from 7 to 5, Monday through Friday Mountain Time. We also have an emergency number available at all times. But oftentimes you can find the answers to what you're looking for right here. It will also give you a shortcut to our support number if needed. Again, we're very happy to help you. That's been our training for common BestNotes features. We look forward to working with you again soon.